Alright, so what I'm going to do is a little bit of an idea from a peer advisor kind of point of view, because I have worked in the Education Abroad office for about a year and a half now. So I've had a lot of people come in, a lot of people tell me their stories, a lot of people tell me complaints and issues, and I kind of made 5 little things, obviously, that I can make a list as well. I'm sure as many of you can as well, who's been abroad, of things that went well, things that went bad, all the above. So I'm gonna just read a little bit more out of the list I made. It's just a brief, large topic as well. So the first one is that you have to remember that you will not experience this in the same way as another person. Again, like everyone else here that have been abroad can agree with me, is that you will not have the same experience as another person. You may enjoy something extreme amounts, and then the person next to you hates it. You just have to keep that in mind. You know, this is going to be a great experience, even if you don't enjoy every little thing that you do. You just got to keep that in mind. Second, which a lot of you might just say, duh, but you will spend money, and you will spend a lot of money. But, as everyone will agree, it is worth it. I mean, you get to see all sorts of the country, you get to see places all over the world, and it doesn't matter if you spend a couple $100 or $50, I mean, you're going to get to go so many places, and every pence, cent, euro, yen, any kind of money that you send around the world, it will be worth it. The third is to expect the unexpected. As a couple people also will agree, because I'm going to refer to them a lot because they went on my trip, you're going to run into some complications. We had an experience where the bus for Ireland was an hour late. And we had to get to the airport to make our time so we could actually get to Ireland. Just to let you know, it went all right, everything went fine, but there was a lot of, obviously, a little anger, a little stress, a little panicking. But again, because a lot of us were trying to be calm, it worked out fine. And in the end, we all had a great time in Ireland. So something to keep in mind as well. The fourth thing I have is to be in the moment. You need to realize that you will never have this experience again. While you're running through these towns, while you're seeing these things with the people you're with, even if you end up going back for a 10-year reunion or whatever, it'll never be the same. Does not matter. You will never have that experience. So just try to realize that while you're experiencing it, because it'll make everything you do so much better. And the fifth thing I have, which I have to say it because, one, I am an Education Abroad peer advisor, but also because it's needed to say, is this is an educational experience. When you study abroad, you are studying abroad. There's going to be a lot of times where you're going to have fun, a lot of times where you're going to explore the area and do things that you don't do here, but you have to remember that there are papers, there are assignments, there are tests. And that's just part of it, because not only get to learn the way that you live and the way that you explore the areas, but you also get to learn a whole different way of teaching. I mean, the education styles around the world are completely different than they are here, and you just have to look at it as another experience as well. So I hope I kind of gave you a little 5 things. Hope that helped a little bit, but that's all I've got to say for right now. So thank you.
My first one is titled, I Want to Study in England. Be blunt. You hear so many things about the trips that people take. Exciting stories, they all shout. Well, what a piece of cake. Of course I want to go abroad. Of course I want to learn. I want to see the works of God, from deserts to red ferns. I close my eyes and see it there, that which I've never known, and still I find that I'm scared. New places I'll be thrown. I'd go to England if I could, living in a castle, living amongst accents so good, to which I try to dabble. The place America broke from, the place of Doctor Who. Nothing I know of it, I'm dumb, a culture which is new. I close my eyes and see it there, that which I'd never known, and still I find that I am scared, a new place I'll be thrown. Thank you. 2 more. Okay, this next one is about me almost going to Nepal. So it's titled Almost in Nepal. Nepal. I almost studied there. Nepal. but quickly became scared. Nepal. To go, I didn't care. Excuse. My mind changed out of fear. Excuse. My safety is too dear. Excuse. Might just as well stay here. Regret. My decision was dumb. Regret. For this summer to come. Regret. The regret feels so numb. Nepal. Excuse. Regret.
I could bore with you the logistics, and I know them all. Where, the accent, how big the town. But the logistics would do just that, bore you. What I can tell you about are the feelings, the emotions I felt when I lived in a castle in a faraway land some time ago. When people ask me what was the best part, I always say the people. The people that I lived with, that eventually turned into a family to me. And the people that I met along the way, who I will probably never see again. The people matter because the people are what touched my heart, who impacted me the most. The locals who hugged me and cried with me on our last night in town, knowing that this moment was the last one we had. But damn, we were thankful for it. The people that danced with me as if I had never danced a day before in my life. We were free on that dance floor, slightly intoxicated, but free. My best friend who traveled with me every step of the way. We didn't know each other before the trip, but we helped each other find ourselves in many different ways. Nothing can even come close to the unique and special friendship we continue to have today. Our teachers, who always pushed us to take everything in, even if we were tired, hungover, hungry, didn't want to do it. We know why you did that now. And you, the future, you're the ones who keep this magical place magical. I cannot explain in words my study abroad experience, and that doesn't matter to you, because you get to create your own. That's the magic. That's the point.
I considered it like freshman year and sophomore year and junior year, and I almost went a few times. I almost arranged it. I started to arrange a few trips, but then I just backed out for reasons like other people have said, money reasons, just being scared to go to another country, deciding, oh, I don't think I want to go to that country, maybe I'll go to this country, and things like that. Also dealing with my parents, not wanting me to go, being afraid for my safety and all that jazz. But if any of you are considering going, I really think that you should try to make it work, because since I'll be graduating without going, it's one of my biggest regrets. Because now I have many friends who have studied abroad, who are like my closest friends now, and they have the best stories, and I'm really jealous. But another thing, I actually told Ashley this yesterday. I have a new opportunity in my life, basically, where I got an email from my aunt, and basically the email started with this poem. So I'm going to read you this poem and then tell you what else happened. So this is a poem that my aunt wrote about, it's full of mystical folklore, banshees and fairies, endless searching for clover while leprechauns hide underground. Mist in the airy shadow dance, bracken are the hillside with bluebells and romance. A thorn between countries once driven apart, Gaelic football and hurling playing under a golden harp. Known for their talk, fighting and drink, its people have big hearts and smiles with a nod and a wink. Its most famous city with its cobblestone streets walked authors and poets as musicians played in the streets. Although the tenement buildings no longer stand, the bacon and cabbage is still in demand. A pot of coddle was known as the poor man's broth. The pawn shop by the Liffey bore everyone's cross. The rag and bone man no longer calls, no more horses and carts, since everyone now has cars. Steeped in tradition, its mithers so brave, this country so green, this emerald isle. So this is about Ireland, and basically my aunt decided to invite me to go along with her and my cousin and the rest of her family to Ireland, not this coming summer, but the summer after that. So that just made me really, really excited, and I know it's going to be tough because I have to save a lot of money because I know that everyone spends way more money than they expect to spend abroad. But I'm really excited, and again, I just want to tell everybody who's considering it to do it, because you don't want to be like me where you regret it a lot. So.
The summer before last, my friend Adeline and I were like, hey, we should go to Europe. So we did. And it was really fun. We went without kind of any itinerary, which wasn't the best plan, because we were like, well, we'll just hang out in London for a few days, and then we're like, oh, we'll leave tomorrow. And then we went to the bus or the train station, and they were like, yeah, you can't get a train out for another 2 days, so we spent more time there. Overall, it was a really awesome experience. So we actually couch surfed, so we just stayed with strangers, basically, which I did not tell my mom until we got home. Alive, also. But yeah, it was a really great experience. A lot of fun. If you do study abroad, I'm sure things will be planned a little better, which in our case, there were things we meant to do that we never got around to, or that, you know, we would have had to plan far in advance. So I'm sure that would be a lot better. One of my favorite stories is we stayed in London with a couple who had just a small flat, but whenever they traveled, they would couch surf, so they opened their place up to whoever wanted to stay there. And we were staying there, my friend Annalie and I, and these two German girls were there at the same time. And the last day the German girls were there, we all went for breakfast in this little cafe in the park. And one of them was like, oh, you know, I want a picture of all of us. And so we were kind of walking around in the park, and a gentleman walking by who, I don't know, he was a pretty old guy. He was probably a head shorter than me, dark skin, and just this majestic, silky white mustache slash beard. It was really impressive. And so she, you know, excuse me, sir, could you take a picture of us? And he stops, smooths his beard, smiles. Like, that was just like the most natural reaction. Of course he wants to take a picture of me with my beard. So he didn't speak English. So she was like, oh, sure, okay, so she takes this picture. And she's like, after that, could you take a picture over here? And she gestures at Mark, who is one of our hosts. And gentleman walks over, stands next to Mark, smiles. And I wish I would have panned my camera, because, I mean, the guy's just grinning and Mark's just kind of like, this guy. And so we get the second picture of this nice man, and he walks away. So we had to find someone else to take our picture, but it was a pretty fun experience.
Sometimes I feel like we have bad experiences just so we can make other people laugh in the future. At least that's what I'm telling myself. This is a story about a disastrous 2-week vacation in Europe. The story starts around 6 a.m. in the small town of Alnwick, England. 3 of my friends, Rebecca, Nina, Ellen, and I, piled into a taxi on our way to the airport. We can skip the plane ride because everything was fine until we left the airport in Spain. We piled into our second taxi of the day, showed our driver the address of the place we were staying, to which he seemed confused. After a few minutes, he said, hesitantly I might add, I can get you there, I know where that is. After quite the drive, he claimed that we had arrived, so we unloaded all of our luggage. Mind you, that was quite a bit. 4 girls for 2 weeks? Definitely wish my muscles were stronger. We couldn't find the building right away, so we walked and asked around. Luckily, Nina was fluent in Spanish. And walked, and asked, and walked. Yep, our driver drove us to the wrong town. So we hailed another taxi. This driver drove us to our correct destination, but the door to the apartment building where we were to stay in was locked, and no one was home. Nina called the owners and was told that we'd have to wait for about an hour for them to arrive. With nowhere to go, we ended up in a small pizzeria. We got a snack and sat with our luggage until the owners arrived. When we saw the inside of the apartment that we were going to be staying in for the next 2 nights, we all thought the trouble was worth it. It was a gorgeous apartment. I suppose that's why they rudely surprised us with the fact that we'd suddenly had to pay a deposit of 250 euros. That's about 400 American dollars. So we emptied our wallets, the landlords left, and we took a nap. The next day and a half we spent in Barcelona, and it was actually pretty wonderful. We saw La Sagrada Familia and even proceeded to see the real Spanish steps after being fooled into thinking we had found them the day before. We had not. So when it was time for us to leave Barcelona and head to Nice, France, we were quite ready to get out of the city that had caused us more than a few troubles. We boarded our first train. We were supposed to transfer once or twice before we got to Nice, but of course, once or twice turned into about 4 different times. It had been less than 5 minutes since we left the train station in Barcelona when our train stopped. I don't remember how long we were stuck on that train, but it was so long that eventually the cigarette smokers on the train couldn't handle it anymore, so they started smoking in the train. We finally got back to the train station, where we unloaded and were piled onto another train. This train was already full of people, so it was a pretty tight squeeze. For the first part of the ride, we were sitting on the floor, practically in between cars. It was hot and stuffy, which, in combination with all the motion, was not good for my stomach. However, the feeling of motion sickness was no longer my biggest problem when the power on our second train of the day went out. Train stopped, and we were stuck in darkness for about 2.5 hours. At this point, Nina and Rebecca found seats in a different part of the train. Ellen and I had no idea where they were. Our cell phone batteries were almost dead, so we laughed. It couldn't get much worse at this point, right? Wrong. I think we transferred trains about 2 more times after that, each train becoming more and more crowded and each of us getting more and more tired and annoyed. We eventually arrived in Nice around 5 in the morning. So we got in a taxi and headed to our hostel. Guess what? It was the wrong hostel. Thank God the workers were nice enough to let us stay for the few hours we'd sleep that morning before getting up bright and early to find our correct hostel. Fast forwarding now, Nice was beautiful, Rome was heaven, Florence was fun, despite some cranky travel companions. My last stop on this crazy journey was Venice, and before we arrived, no, I did not know that you could actually only travel by boat. That made for an adventure. Nina, Ellen, and Rebecca were headed to Germany after Venice. For a few reasons, I was headed back to our castle home. But getting there wasn't going to be easy. I had to take a boat from our hostel to the bus station, a bus from the bus station to the airport, a plane from Venice to Leeds, a train from Leeds to Alnmouth, and a taxi from Alnmouth to Alnwick. I was terrified because I was doing all of this by myself through countries in which I didn't speak the language. It took me over 12 hours to get home, and I don't think I was ever so happy to see that castle. I was almost in tears as I threw down my luggage and ran upstairs to see Brian and Jake, the only 2 students who were in the castle, so I could tell them about my crazy adventures. You know, Bill Cosby once said, through humor you can soften some of the worst blows that life delivers. And once you find laughter, no matter how painful your situation may be, you can survive it. So I flung open the door to Brian's room, and with tears in my eyes, all I could say was, who wants to get some pizza? I mean, every year I go to the booth, I pick up hundreds of brochures. I'm like, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go there, and I never do it because I don't want to pay the money. However, within the last 5 minutes, I've decided that it's only money, and you can't take it with you when you die, so travel. I'm actually engaged, which is really hard because my fiance is very partial to Minnesota and doesn't want to leave, and I want to, if I could, I would just spend my life moving from country to country and state to state. That's how badly I want to see things. But because I love him, I will stay here, but not before at least studying abroad for at least summer sessions.
Okay, today is about education abroad, and guess what? I'm studying abroad right now. Progress, okay, study abroad is about America, so I don't want to talk about what I found in America because you already know. So pretty much today I will talk about, you know, how I decide and what I felt after all. Okay, so here's your story. Study abroad was one of my dreams since I was little. I remember I said my dream was to become a manga artist or to go to a foreign country at graduation ceremony of the elementary school. Don't ask me why I had two different dreams, you know. Just little child, you know, dream everything they can think of. So, just yeah, I was looking forward to go to see and outside of my world. Okay, my plan was going to America after I graduated high school. I grew up and became 17. Although I was keep saying that I wanted to go to study abroad, it was difficult to moving into action because it was just hard to leave a comfortable place and jump into the place where I knew nothing and people speak different language. Yes, I learned English at school, but that meant nothing to me because I knew I can read a pattern sentence, but I cannot listen and speak at the same time. I definitely have no confidence toward my foreign language skill. So, I decided not to go study abroad. But wait, you might think, but you were here, so doesn't mean that you were studying abroad, right? Well, so yes I do. So now I'm going to talk about how I decided, you know, come here again. I loved my dream. And I was struggling to decide what to do besides studying abroad. At that time, my parents told me, find something that I can proud of while I'm being a student. I heard something click in my head. I did not even have a single skill that I can proud of. I knew if I stayed at the comfortable place, I would keep walking an easy road and stay being normal for the rest of my life. It will be a pretty boring life, isn't it? So I stand up. I decided to come here because I wanted to overcome the fear of change and to change my boring life to the meaning life. Even though I was not satisfied with my foreign language skill, I just decided to put myself into challenging situation. I did it. My challenge is still in progress, and I learned a lot of things from that. One important fact, if you go through all of this process, is you will realize how much you live in small world. You will touch, feel, and experience all the things you never imagined. The college student, you have to spend about 4 years in college, right? What do you think? How many things will you remember from your 4-year college life after you graduate? I can tell you, if you go to study abroad, every second will be unforgettable memory. Every second you will learn something new, and every second you will grow up strong. So for people who thought about studying abroad, even for a second, even a little bit, you already hold a ticket for a whole new world. That is where you will meet whole new, ever imagined you. Thank you very much.
My life was kind of at a crossroads these last few years, so I wasn't able to have the opportunity to go, but had life worked out a little bit better, I think I would have enjoyed it very much so, because everybody that I speak with, the few friends that I have that have studied abroad speak very highly of it, and all I can do is suggest it. So, but here's the poem. Not very long, but 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trail winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. Mark Twain. So I just think that I would have liked to have the opportunity to. I had the opportunity to on multiple occasions. I just didn't have the finances or the, again, mental capacity to be able to handle all of the chaos that becomes of the study abroad trip. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I was going to tell you this story. I had a travel companion, and we traveled around. We had a 2-week plan. We were going to spend half a week in Amsterdam, half a week in Venice, and then a week in London. However, when we got to the airport to leave from Amsterdam to Venice, our plane was supposed to leave at 8 o'clock. However, she thought that meant that 8 p.m., but it left at 8 a.m. And so we got there at the desk, and they gave us this weird look like, your plane left 10 hours ago. And so we're like, okay, we kind of panicked for a little bit, and then thought, what do we do? So I sat there with whipped out my smartphone, paid the €2.99 to use 5 minutes of Wi-Fi, and booked us 2 tickets back to London and a night in a hostel. And so we ended up spending, I think, €400 each for a last-minute plane ticket to London. So we, after about a minute of panicking and a couple minutes of trying to reorganize, we made our way to London 2 days early. And so I guess that's just my story for now.
I'm up here to say that studying abroad, you're going to come across so many unique experiences. And for me, I was able to study this past summer, and let me tell you, it was quite the summer. The UK was booming. There was the Diamond Jubilee, the Olympics. It was an unreal experience, and one thing that will always stick with me is in Anik, the Olympic torch came to the castle. That already was such a unreal experience, and the entire town of Anik sold out. 8,000 tickets were there. So we didn't know as students if we were whether or not we were going to be able to be there. But we got the courage, and we walked all the way up to the gates, and we were like, we live in the castle. Can we get in? Like, we were just like, oh, let's just try it. And they let us in, and we were able to be at the Olympic Torch Festival. And as we were leaving, I was walking in with my roommate and my 2 other friends who were actually, ironically, walking in with the future Duke of Northumberland, the oldest son, George. He was walking in first, and we were walking in right behind him. And there were security that were working with the Olympics, and they were making a video for the Olympic Torch Festival. And one of the officers, which we didn't know, he was an officer because he was kind of dressed up kind of differently, he stopped us and was like, do you guys want to hold the Olympic flame? And we were like, yes. So I have pictures now holding the Olympic flame that actually lights the torch. And I can say I will never do that again. There's so many things that I did this summer that, you know, I might go back to England, I might go back to Ireland, eventually go back to Italy, Germany, all those things. But those kind of things, it won't happen again. So that's, I think, for me, was like one of the most memorable experiences being in England and being in Anik, being able to experience that. So, yeah.
I always wanted to study abroad when I was at the community college, but they really didn't have any specific places to go. I actually went to a seminar once, even to study abroad. I have a whole bunch of pamphlets still from that. But it was never right. And came to St. Cloud State, they had a booth, like a couple of you mentioned, and it really, I wanted to go, but again, it just wasn't working. I hated my major. I was an attendant business major. I hated accounting, if you guys know that. Yeah, and I hated stats. I just hated. And then I saw study abroad, and I was like, okay. Saw it in one of my classes, saw it in 2 of my classes. We had 3 presentations in one day. And I'm like, okay, fine. So then I went, I looked at the application online, printed it out, filled it out, still didn't know what I was doing. Went and talked to Diane McClure, if any of you know who she is. And she's like, yep, just do this. Signed it all for me. And I'm like, is that it? She goes, yep, just turn that in. And I'm the kind of person where if everything kind of just happens for me, I take it as a sign to run. So I signed up, got an email back saying you've been not really accepted because that's not how it handles, but at the time I thought it was accepted. And then I left, and we went to England, and that's all I can really remember from those 4 months afterwards. But a lot of times it get me fun because I actually remembered everyone's name before we even left. But yeah, I know that you obviously have come to realize that this really is the most important thing. I mean, I got to travel. My friend actually lives in Serbia and Montenegro. If any of you know that, the Balkan areas. I got to go visit her for a week. I got to go to Ireland for a week. I mean, this was honestly the most important thing in my life, and I don't regret anything from it. I don't regret any of the people I met. I don't regret, well, I can't even talk. I don't regret the money. I mean, I'm going to be in debt for a while, and I don't care. And it just goes to show you that this is important. And in fact, this is kind of what I want to do with my life now, is I want to help students go abroad. I'm actually, after I graduate, going to intend to apply to a lot of the third-party providers because there's a lot out there that I didn't even know existed until I worked in the office. There's like Global Links, and there's ISA, and CIS, which I know also stands for Center of International Studies, but I mean, there's just so much world out there, and I don't want to stay in Minnesota. Yeah, just letting you know, great experience.